Mira arrived at Willow's Edge just as the chill of winter was losing its grip. The roads were still wet from melting snow, and the air smelled faintly of damp earth and renewal. Her family's old house stood at the end of a narrow lane, surrounded by overgrown hedges and a garden that had once been her childhood paradise. Now it was wild, tangled, and silent, much like the way SHE felt inside. She'd come back because SHE needed to start over, but SHE wasn't sure what starting over meant anymore. The first days passed quietly. Mira unpacked boxes, wiped dust from forgotten photo frames, and slept in her old room that still bore the faint outlines of stickers on the walls. Memories come in waves, later in the backyard. Her father teaching her to paint, her mother reading aloud on stormy nights. It all felt both familiar and impossibly distant. One morning, while searching through the attic, SHE discovered a box SHE didn't remember, filled with sketches, unfinished poems, and a worn notebook with her name scrawled across the cover in faded ink. The pages were full of half-formed stories and small watercolor illustrations of gardens, forests, and people SHE once imagined. Flipping through it stirred something that had been asleep for years. Maybe SHE could bring that part of herself back, the one that saw beauty and wanted to share it. Down in town, Mira stopped at the hardware store to buy paint and towels for small repairs. Behind the counter stood Lucas, her childhood friend, now grown into someone steady, with rough hands and a calm smile. Their reunion was awkward but kind. He offered to help her fix the fence out back, just like old times. SHE hesitated, then nodded. Days turned into weeks as they worked side by side under a gentle spring sun. They didn't talk much at first, but little by little, words began to come easier, stories about where life had taken them, about what they'd lost and what they hoped to find. Mira noticed that the more SHE cleaned and repaired, the more the house seemed to breathe again. SHE began clearing the garden, trimming branches, planting seeds she'd bought on impulse from the town's small market. Each sprout felt like a quiet promise that something good could still grow. Evenings were her favorite. SHE would sit on the porch with a cup of tea, the sky painted in soft pinks and oranges, the smell of damp soil rising from the earth. Sometimes Lucas would stop by to drop off towels or bring her wildflowers. They'd sit in silence, watching the fireflies blink in the dusk. There was comfort in that silence, not the emptiness she'd felt before, but a peaceful kind of stillness that said, "You're home." One night, as the first blossoms opened on the cherry tree, Mira took her old notebook to the garden table and began writing again. The words come slowly, but they come. Stories about roots, about change, about starting from nothing and finding everything. By the light of the lantern, SHE realized what SHE wanted, to turn this old house into a place where hours could come and create to fill it with music, stories, and laughter again. When SHE told Lucas about her idea, he just smiled and said, "It sounds like the kind of thing this town has been missing." Summer came to Willow's Edge like a song that refused to end. The mornings were bright and filled with the hum of bees, and the evenings stretched long and golden. Mira woke each day with a purpose now. The house no longer felt like a relic of the past, it was becoming a living place again. The walls were freshly painted, the garden alive with color. Roses climbed the porch railings, lavender grew in the borders, and the air carried the scent of earth and possibility. Her plan to turn the house into a small gathering space began to take shape. SHE started small, a few neighbors came over on Friday evenings for tea, some brought guitars, others stories. Lucas helped string fairy lights between the trees, his laughter mingling with hers as they worked under the fading sun. The first official, garden night, felt magical, soft music drifted through the yard, children chased fireflies, and people who hadn't spoken in years sat together and shared memories. For Mira, it was more than an event, it was healing. The town noticed. Some were curious, others skeptical. Willow's Edge had grown quiet over the years, people didn't gather like this anymore. But as word spread, more come, old friends, new faces, artists, and travelers. One evening, a man with a guitar case arrived unannounced. His name was Elias, a musician who had been passing through and had heard about Mira's open garden nights. He played a song that left the crowd silent, his voice raw, the kind that made you feel like he was singing directly to you. After everyone left that night, Mira found him sitting by the dying embers of the fire pit. They talked until the sky began to pale. He told her about the road, how he lived from town to town, never staying long, always chasing new melodies. SH told him about her garden, how SH was trying to rebuild something that had been lost. He smiled and said, maybe that is what we're all dying, trying to grow something in the ruins. As the weeks passed, Elias stayed longer than he had planned. Together, he and Mira began hosting music nights that drew even larger crowds. Lucas, though supportive, grew quieter around Elias. He had always been the steady one, the person who helped her fix things, but now he found himself standing in the background as Mira lied and sang under the lights with someone new. One afternoon, while buying supplies in town, a sharply dressed man approached Mira. He introduced himself as Mr. Warren, a real estate developer. He spoke with an easy confidence, the kind that made her uneasy. He told her he admired what she'd done with the property, said it had potential. Then he made his offer to buy the land and turn it into something modern. Mira politely refused, but his smirk lingered in her mind long after he left. The following weeks were both beautiful and tense. The garden thrived, the latter grew louder, but Mira began receiving letters from the town council about noise complaints. Some neighbors supported her, others didn't. Lucas tried to reason with the council, reminding them that the gatherings were bringing life back to Willow's Edge. But it became clear that not everyone shared Mira's dream. Elias, ever the wanderer, told her not to worry. They can't stop something that is alive, he said. But his words didn't ease the tightnesses in her chest. One night, after a long evening of music, SH sat alone in the garden, the lanterns swaying gently in the warm breeze. Lucas arrived late, covered in dust from work, and told her quietly that the developer had offered to buy the land from her again, for double the price. He thought SH should at least consider it, maybe use the money to start over somewhere new. Mira looked around, at the flowers she'd planted, the benches Lucas had built, the latter still echoing faintly from the night. No, SH said softly. This is home. I'm not giving it up. The summer carried on in its full, blazing glory. The music nights continued, even as tension brewed quietly beneath the surface. Mira tried to focus on the joy, the smiles, the stars, the moments that made it all worth it. SH began writing again, capturing the way the light looked through the trees, the sound of Elias's guitar, the calm steadiness in Lucas's eyes. Autumn crept into Willow's Edge quietly, with misty mornings, and leaves that blazed gold before tumbling to the ground. The warmth of summer had faded, replaced by a chill that lingered in the air. The garden was still beautiful, but its wild energy had softened, the flowers bowed their heads, the vines curled inward, and Mira felt the same slow shift within herself. The gatherings continued, but fewer people came now. The evenings grew colder, and the glow of lanterns no longer chased the night away as easily as before. Still, Mira tried to hold on to what they'd built. SH baked bread for her guests, wrapped scarves around her shoulders, and kept the music alive. Yet there was a growing tension that no song could drown out. Mr. Warren, the developer, hadn't gone away. His offers became more aggressive. Letters from his lawyers began arriving, filled with legal jargon that made Mira's head spin. He had claimed her events were disturbing the peace, that her gatherings violated zoning laws. Some of the very neighbors who had once enjoyed her garden now complained about noise and parking. The same town that had once seemed to welcome her dream was beginning to turn against it. Lucas stood by her side, but the strain shaved. He had taken it upon himself to attend the town council meetings, to defend her, to remind everyone of what her project had done for Willow's Edge. But politics had a way of twisting good intentions. Rumors spread that he had personal reasons for defending her, that he was trying to use her project for his own benefit. The accusations hurt him, and her, Morton Eater admitted. Meanwhile, Elias seemed untouched by it all. He continued to play music, carefree as ever, telling Mira that none of it mattered, that people would always resist change. But he could feel a distance growing between them. He spoke often about leaving soon, heading south before winter came. The idea filled Mira with a quiet ash. When SH asked him if he'd stay, he only smiled and said, "You were never meant to stay still, Eater." One day, while clearing the attic again in search of old documents, Mira and Lucas stumbled upon something remarkable, a stack of yellowed papers tied with ribbon. They were old town records, handwritten decades ago. Among them was a deed showing that the property had once belonged to the community. It had been a public art center before being sold off during hard times. The discovery changed everything. Mira realized that what SHE was dying wasn't just a personal dream. SHE was restoring something that had once belonged to everyone. SHE and Lucas presented the records at the next council meeting. The room buzzed with murmurs as they explained the house's history, showing that it had once been at the heart of the town's creativity. Some council members seemed moved. I was skeptical. Mr. Warren, who attended in person this time, didn't look happy. His plans were threatened, and his polite mask began to slip. After the meeting, as the first rain of the season began to fall, Mira stood outside the old building and watched the water run down the stairs. Lucas joined her, silent for a long while before finally saying, "You know this isn't going to be easy." "He won't stop." "I know," SH said. "But I can't stop either." The next weeks were a blur of preparation. SH organized one last major event, a festival to celebrate the garden, the house, and the spirit of art that had once defined Willow's Edge. Flyers went up around town, local musicians volunteered, even children from the nearby school offered to help decorate. Elias played a song he'd written for her, a haunting melody that carried both love and goodbye. The crowd clapped and cheered, you knew that he'd be gone by morning. When Mira went looking for him the next day, his room was empty except for his guitar pick and a note, "Keep playing. The world needs your song." SH read it twice, then tucked it into her notebook. Autumn deepened, and the colors of the garden turned from gold to rust. The festival had been a success, but it felt bittersweet. Elias was gone, the developer still loomed, and the fight for the house had only just begun. Yet, something had changed inside Mira. SH was no longer afraid of losing what she'd built. SH understood now that what truly mattered wasn't the house or even the garden, it was the community, the stories, the connections that had taken root. One night, SH stood alone beneath the cherry tree, its leaves falling like whispered farewells around her. The air was cold, her breath visible in the moonlight. SH whispered to the quiet, "Whatever comes next, I'll face it." Winter came early to Willow's Edge that year. The first snow fell before the leaves had fully disappeared, blanketing the garden in silence. The colors that had once danced in the sunlight were now hidden under soft white layers, and the house stood like a quiet guardian against the cold. Mira walked to frost on the windows, her breath fogging the glass as it traced shapes in it. The honest bustling garden lay still, yet SHE didn't feel sadness, only peace, like the earth each leaf was resting after a long, beautiful year. With the getting so cold to hold outside, Mira moved everything indoors. SHE cleared out the largest room, filled it with mismatched chairs and borrowed lamps, and turned the space into a cozy retreat. The first winter night of stars drew a small crowd, neighbors, friends, even a few strangers who'd heard about the place. Lucas brought firewood, and soon the crackle of the flames filled the air while snow fell softly outside. People read poems, shared songs, told stories about their families and the town. It wasn't loud or grand, but it was warm, alive, and real. Lucas had become a quiet constant in those months. He was there almost every evening, helping Mira fix broken floorboards, tending the fire, sometimes just sitting beside her as SH wrote in her notebook. Their friendship had deepened into something steadier, something that didn't need words to be understood. They had been through conflict and silence, laughter and heartbreak, and what remained between them was genuine, the kind of bond that didn't demand, only gave. The legal fight with Mr. Warren finally came to an end in early December. Thanks to the documents SHE and Lucas had uncovered, the town council ruled that the property could not be sold for private development. The garden and the house were recognized as a historic cultural site, and Mira was granted permission to form a trust that would protect it for generations to come. The day SHE received the letter, SHE stood outside in the snow, lying through tears. For the first time, the future didn't feel uncertain, it felt open. That evening, SHE hosted a celebration unlike any other. The entire town came, strings of warm lights lined the windows, music filled the rooms, and laughter echoed down the hallways. Children ran around in scarves and mittens, people sang carols, and someone brought hot cider that steamed in everyone's hands. Mira read one of her new stories aloud, about a garden that had nearly been lost but kept growing because people believed in it. When SHE finished, there was silence, then applause that rallied through the room like thunder. Later that night, as the crowd began to thin and the fire burned low, Mira found a small wrapped package near the door. Inside was a letter-bound journal and a single guitar pick, Elias's, SHE realized immediately. No, not this time, just the quiet weight of memory and gratitude. SHE smiled, closed her eyes for a moment, and whispered, "Thank you." As the days passed, the world outside grew colder, but the warmth inside the house never faded. The community continued to gather, to paint, sing, write, or simply sit by the fire. Mira used her old notebook to start a new project, collecting the stories people shared each week and binding them together into a single book. SHE called it the Seasons of Willow's Edge. On New Year's Eve, the snow fell in thick, lazy flakes. After everyone had gone home, Mira stepped outside. The garden was quiet, moonlight glimmering on the snow-covered branches. SHE could almost hear the echoes of the past seasons, laughter, music, promises whispered under summer stars. SHE knelt in the snow and pressed a small seed into the frozen soil. "This is for spring," SHE said softly. When SHE stood, Lucas was at the door, watching her with a smile that said everything worth couldn't. Together, they went inside, closing the door gently against the cold. The fire still burned, and above the mantel hung a new sign, hand-painted by the townsfolk, Willow's Edge Community House, where stories grow.